So we got supposedly SpongeBob's darkest episode. Now the thing is, I feel like I'm gonna be very, very desensitized to the things that will be talked about in this video because I've been watching these absolute psychotic and deranged conspiracy theories. That evolution theory made my head blow up, and I will not be able to stop crying for the next 45 years, bro. So in terms of darkness, I don't know how dark we gonna go. I pray to God we don't get any darker than some of these theories, bro, because I will not be able to emotionally handle something like this. I will have an emotional and physical breakdown in the corner of my bedroom, depending on where this video goes. So, let's see what we got. Squarespace.
This video is brought to you by Squarespace. When it comes to websites, online stores, etc., there's no place to build a beautiful online presence.
Do you need a website?
Squarespace.
Use his
After 3
code.
videos and probably a bunch of mentions, I can safely say SpongeBob has not only been a big part of this channel, but my life as well. I think it's a really creative show and it never missed the mark, but there's one episode in particular that I think about maybe once a week. That episode is Squidville. Now, when I caught Squidville at a young age, my reaction was always, Squidward's sad, and that still holds till this day. I think Squidville, in a very creative way, is addressing not only depression, but existentialism as well. Let's run through it. The episode starts with SpongeBob and Patrick playing with reef blowers. What starts as a fun way to pass time quickly turns into something more than that, something that annoys Squidward. They take the lines out of SpongeBob's house, the nose, mouth, and eventually eyes out of Squidward's. They turned what used to be a face, a personality, a soul, into nothing more than a rock, trapping Squid in this place of nothingness. After digging himself out from underground, he confronts SpongeBob and Patrick, criticizing them for using the reef blowers and basically wishing he didn't have to live with them in this attitude. Of course, shortly after, a TV comes out of the sky and grants Squidward an opportunity to escape to a land called Squidville, where he is surrounded by only those of his kind. Unsurprisingly, he decides to take the trip. After passing a pretty simple test on his physical appearance, he's welcomed with the same negative energy he's had his whole life by another civilian, and as a result, he feels amazing. Now, the following montage is where things get interesting. Squidward goes about some of his favorite activities like biking, buying canned bread, interpretive dance, and clarinet playing. In simpler terms, it's Squidward in his ideal society. There isn't room for error. But as this life continues, Squidward finds himself numb to these pleasures. After doing them every day, they start to mean less to him. Eventually, he grows depressed, and I think this is where the show gets really interesting. In less than a minute, the writers are able to capture a depressing part of life that everyone has to deal with. We as people similar to Squidward have this desire for pleasure/love or happiness, but this episode argues happiness can't exist on its own. By that I mean even if Squidward eliminates everything that brings him anger and sadness, that feeling of dread is inevitable, which in my opinion applies to all of us. What is happiness if not a direct response to sadness? This episode isn't just stating the fact that Squidward is sad, it's exploring a definition of happiness.
So essentially, all the things that made Squidward happy made him so happy because everything else pissed him off. He hated everything else around him besides biking, clarinetting, and canned breading. You know what I mean? And so he pulls up to Tentacle Acres, right? And then that's all he does. All day, every day. Biking, canned breading, and clarinetting. You know what I mean? And there's nothing around him for him to hate. There's nothing around for it to piss him off, you know what I'm saying? So the things that bring him happiness out of the sadness is it just turns into his everyday routine, and then there's no really like satisfaction or happiness because there's nothing to compare it to in terms of things pissing him off.
Satisfaction.
This is deep, bro.
Especially to someone dealing with depression. It criticizes this ideology that bringing yourself satisfaction is surrounding yourself in a setting fit just for you. I think we've all been in that place where we say, if only blank was blank, then everything would be fine. But life is an endless search for that next thing, and this episode is recognizing that. Even with these qualities, Squidward is still sad, so in a sense he's trapped and can never find that full happiness. But that's not on him, it still applies to everyone, us included. Much of this can be supported by looking at the ancient heroes.
Oh my God, those boobies and butt cheeks!
Not as a state of being, but as something made up of decisions we make. They find happiness in smaller moments, the way, say, SpongeBob and Patrick do. It's a way of thinking that SpongeBob,
I swear to God, if you show a dick.
Even at something as debatably suffering as work, he finds moments of relief and enjoyment in pretty much every episode. Squidward, who clearly strives for a state of happiness, is only brought down further into his state of depression because he relies on his shortcomings in life around him as the excuse for not being happy, but in reality, he's always searching for a constant state of happiness that is unattainable. Let's think hypothetically. Say you hate your job, you have
He's always searching for a constant state of happiness that is unattainable. That might be the most sad and depressing thing I've heard about SpongeBob in my entire life. Squidward is doing nothing more but searching for a constant happiness, and it is not achievable. That is, now I'm sad. Now I'm sad. Now I feel like Squidward, bro. I'm hard. It breaks my heart. Squidward just wants constant happiness and can't find it, dude.
In life around
that
him
is so sad.
Happy, but in reality, he's always searching for a constant state of happiness that is unattainable. Let's think
he just like me, bro. He just wants to be happy.
Partner, and I don't know, it's too cold where you live. So maybe you magically lose your allergies. You find yourself a perfect partner. You move to your dream place, and you get that job as a storyboard artist because, goddamn, that sounds like a pretty good gig. You have literally everything. So do you just never feel sad anymore? Most likely, you're still gonna find error in your everyday life. There's going to be something holding you back from being 100% happy. Sitting on the couch watching a movie gave you pleasure because of the events leading up to it, because that activity in itself isn't an act of relief. It only feels like a relief when put in the context of, say, sadness. This is a good time to cite the Wheel of Fortune. No, not the popular game show hosted by Pat Sajak. I'm talking about a concept in ancient philosophy that means the unpredictable nature of fate. In this scenario, it's safe to assume happiness is attached to this wheel. Boethius, a philosopher from the 6th century, argues that the wheel continues to spin, and that while we may feel the fortune of happiness, it isn't true happiness, because if happiness is attached to the wheel, our sadness is as well. True happiness is found in eternal ideas like finding God, attaching ourselves to higher knowledge. That's different than the feeling of being happy that you can get from being with a loved one, or say, indulging in pleasures you'd find in Squidville. So not much later in this episode, Squidward accepts this depression, finding himself alone in the park. He is then given another opportunity when
this is getting deep, bro. He's poking at me now. He's telling me, he's talking about you can't be happy without the sad. And like, when I think about that, when I think about that, it's fucked to say, like, oh yeah, if you want to be happy, you also have to be sad. You ain't got no choice. And like, that's fucked up to say on the surface level, but if you really think about it, if you really think about it, yeah, that's exactly what it is, bro. Because you know what I'm saying? You can't. Happiness is based upon like your, you know what I mean? Like compared to sadness. I'm confusing myself, bro. This is too philosophical for me. This is too philosophical. I'm about to short circuit. My brain's about to fry, dude.
Being happy that you can get from being with a loved one, or say, indulging in pleasures you'd find in Squidville. So not much later in this episode, Squidward accepts this depression, finding himself alone in the park. He is then given another opportunity when a reef blower is found unattended. After some hesitation, Squidward takes the reef blower and begins to play with it, using it against others. He causes disruption and annoys those around him, all for his own pleasure. How this ties into earlier is that this society is essentially a mirror of who he is. This is the show's way of showing Squidward battling against himself. The pleasure and genuine fresh happiness that he feels in the moment is nothing but a reaction to his own actions. It's a feeling that only exists because of the bad. Now notice how I said feeling rather than a way of being.
Dude, this is
Squidward
depressing.
is aware of the harsh consequences that come from these actions, like being kicked out of the town, but in one of the few times in this entire series, Squidward thinks short-term on what makes him happy. Rather than striving to reach a state of constant happiness, he appreciates the happy moments that he can get. But is this really a happy ending? I'd argue it's not. I can imagine it being impossible for Squidward to find joy and excitement out of most things after this. I mean, how would it feel to know anything good in your life that brings you happiness will eventually feel numb and bring you sadness? How depressing is it to feel unenthused?
Dude, what is he trying to do? What is he trying to do here? Now, anything that brings you happiness will eventually feel dull and numb and will bring you nothing but pain, sadness, agony, and torment. That's nice, dude. That's nice. You know what makes me happy? Boobies. I love me some boobies. Are you telling me that eventually boobies are not gonna make me happy anymore, and it's a jiggly pair of milk jugs in my face is gonna make me sad and depressed? Is that what you're telling me, dude? Because then that's gonna make me even more depressed, dude. The fact that boobies don't make me happy anymore. This is not I'm not having a fun experience with this video.
Life
I'm
that
not.
brings you happiness will eventually feel numb and bring you sadness. How depressing is it to feel unenthused about the only things that brought you joy, and the only way to find happiness is to disrupt things? And the funny thing is, it's not like Squid is alone. This is all of us. We're all Squidward in a certain sense if put into this hypothetical situation. Squidville is one of my favorite episodes of TV out there. It's impressive how much it does in only 12 minutes. Especially with the way the world currently is, I think it's moments like these that remind you of some of the simpler ways of finding happiness in life. Like, say, watching a YouTube video on Squidville or playing with a reef blower. So I'll end with this. Just remember that SpongeBob is a great show. Achieving a constant state of happiness and fulfillment is unachievable. And what was the last thing? Oh yeah, this...
SpongeBob makes me happy. SpongeBob brings me a constant state of happiness. And I'm sitting here and I'm realizing he's right. He is absolutely right. Every time I watch SpongeBob, I feel happy. I feel joy. I feel comfort. Right? But then I watch one of these psychotic fucking SpongeBob conspiracy theories that completely dismantles everything I've ever known and loved and shatters my heart into a million pieces. Then I get depressed. So yeah, I just found an example. That's crazy. That's crazy. He's right.
This video is sponsored by Squarespace. You're probably self-isolating right now, and if you're not, you should. And
I'm not self-isolating by choice. I just have no friends. All right. Dude, this video was depressing. This video was basically he spent an entire 5 minutes and 49 seconds telling us, hey, Squidward is depressed and he will only ever be depressed. That's fucked up, bro. Like, he finds happiness. He truly finds a constant state of happiness only for him to now again be in a constant state of depression. And like that's psychotic, bro. That breaks my heart, bro. I feel bad for Squidward. I feel so bad for Squidward, bro. He just wants to be happy. He just wants to be happy, and the only happiness he can find in his life are the little tokens. Just the little tokens, bro. He can play his clarinet. That makes him happy. He can ride his bike. That makes him happy. He can buy some fucking canned bread. That makes him happy. But if he gets to experience that all day, every day, then he's not actually truly happy. It's, you know what I'm saying? This is crazy. This is philosophical. I can't wrap my brain around it, but it's still making me feel all kinds of sadness, dude. This one was dark in a completely different way, bro.